we decided, in reaction to the hate speech legislation, Lucia spoke about it a little bit. It was going through the second house, and the speech element was obviously very troubling for us because they were using LGBTQ to push it through. But we knew that lesbians, gays, bisexuals like us who know that sexuality is actually based on the sex of the person, not some internal gender feelings. Um, so we knew that we would potentially be criminalized for speaking because we'd seen it happen in Norway with their hate speech legislation. So we went, well, no one's speaking up for us, so we're going to do it. And we're all in our 20s. One of the other co-founders is here today, but she's also involved in Roddy Colleen. So we set up and we launched that campaign, and it was actually quite successful, and we were mentioned in the Shannon, alongside the Countess and Roddy Colleen and various other women's grassroots groups fought back against it and Free Speech Ireland. But it was just the whole situation in Ireland with self ID. We have full self ID, so it costs a tenner to get a JRC in Dublin. That's all. You just pay a tenner for the solicitor's signature on the form. It's 184 form. You don't have to, like in the UK, have some sort of proof of living of the opposite sex. So then all of your sex markers on everything, including your birth cert, can be changed for a tenner. So that is something that we're currently working on, drafting a potential bill, because the way that it works there, you can basically put a bill that will then repeal it, like a repeal bill. So not all gays, myself and the other legal head within the group are working on drafting something that we can then propose to various different legislators at home. But obviously I am now based in the UK as well. So we're going to look at what we can do over here to benefit that and our role with as like an LGBT organization. But we've also spoken out very strongly against surrogacy because again, at home, the LGBTQ conglomerate that has the government in a chokehold, and in their back pockets financially and in our schools and everything belong to Antenny. They have been pushing really heavily for the legislation, and Ireland, unfortunately, last year did actually pass an act that is allowing some of the most liberal surrogacy legislation in the world, both international and national surrogacy. So we said, well, actually, this has nothing to do with gay rights. It has nothing got to do with us, and you're not going to do it in our name, not now, not ever. So we spoke at Parliament on that, because surrogacy is not a human right, and it's certainly not a gay right or anything that two gay men are do. And then earlier this year, we launched an independent research and then produced a report on the impact of the lack of safeguarding on dating apps that is impacting predominantly lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth as opposed to their heterosexual peers. And the results came back that the reasons for that is because they feel more isolated, they maybe don't know other lesbians, gays, or bisexuals offline. So they turn to online spaces for, like teenagers going on trying to find someone to date or whatever in the innocence that is teenage romance. And they turn to online platforms, which are all meant to be, and obviously during the week, the safeguarding measure that was put in place, mandatory age verification on the porn sites, etc. And I know it's hit roadblocks. I don't know if anyone in the room knows what that is, but it's filled with pedophiles, and it's like a gaming thing, but children use it, but obviously then pedophiles do it. So there's now apparently the age verification lock on that as well, so you have to be 18 to use it, which I personally think is amazing. But as a result of our findings in the report, it was over 70% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth that have actually groomed by adults online through these dating sites, with all of them who had contact with adults, 90% of those actually met an adult in real life and sexual contact occurred. So it's like a significant number of particularly predominantly young gay boys, and I was still in this conference, but it is relevant in terms of child safeguarding. Young gay boys are particularly, and we saw in the Stephen Ireland case, he did use Grindr to access these children, and victimize them and assault them. So we put together this report and we submitted it to the EU. They have now found it admissible as a petition, so that can have supporters. You can find information on our website on that, but it's that EU-wide age verification in the form of a self, like the same way that you'd have for a banking app, a pass, like an ID photo and a selfie to show that you are the person in the ID and that you are of the age that you're meant to be for using these dating sites. So that's our big thing that we're doing at the moment, and then we're going to look at what's happening in school, LGBTQ education and resources and stuff like that to make it non-captured, because we have been contacted by teachers, because younger people now are finding it a little bit difficult. Firstly, anything that they are willing to engage with is captured stuff that's being produced by Stonewall mermaids at home. It's belonged to in tenure in our schools and writing the curriculum. It's outrageous. But there's anything that's not captured is kind of much older material, and young students, teenagers are not going to engage with it. And obviously, it is part of the RSE thing to mention that gays, lesbians, bisexuals do actually exist, and it's fine. So we're looking at working towards that with my girlfriend who recently joined Not All Gays, but she has education background, so we're going to be working on making like some sort of resources that kind of eliminate the TQ element and just very safeguarding friendly. Probably going to work with Tanya from the Safe Schools Alliance. But then I also wanted to just talk like outside of the work of Not All Gays. There's obviously Connie Shaw was speaking yesterday, but the importance of young women within this movement, because I think obviously different generations and the older women are so valuable for us to learn from, and being able to give us platforms and stuff. But it's really hard to reach the normies that are like our age and my age. I'm 27. So many of them, I think it's around, when I like ask around, it's about 25 years old currently to about 35, give or take a few years, that are really, really captured. And obviously there's all these perverts that like are pushing the TRA bullshit. But they the handmaidens are really beneficial for them, because they're choice feminists, and they're, the sex work is work and OnlyFans is really liberating and all of that. But then they're saying trans women are women and you have to respect them. And actually, they make better women than actual women, or that they experience misogyny more than women. So to reach those, it's really, really important for the younger women who can, and it's safe to do so, do speak up and speak up loudly. And because that's how we're reaching younger ones who maybe are on the fence or maybe feel alone. Connie had testimonies from several young women who are still currently in university, and lots of them were anonymous because of that reason, because they don't want disciplinary action or not to be able to graduate. Like Connie said that she is going to be able to finally talk about the full extent of what happened in Leeds University to her, but she hasn't been able to because she isn't graduating until later, a little bit later on. She's finished her final year, but she can't say anything because they could stop her from graduating if she does. So it's really important that we do speak up for the girls, the teenage girls and younger women who can't yet, and be their voice. But things like TikTok and stuff, like we're the TikTok generation, we're reaching kind of an age group and an audience that things like this are not reaching. Like this, conferences like this are amazing and really beneficial for all of us to learn from each other and to reach women across the world through online platforms. But things like TikTok are really beneficial. I've started utilizing TikTok for turfing, and while you kind of have to tiptoe around because the algorithm and whatever, and you can get shut down very, very easily. So you have to kind of tiptoe around and figure out what language to use, which is really frustrating because I'd love to just call them all dirty perverts, but you can't do that on TikTok. But I'm getting messages, they're fearful to comment online. It's their personal TikTok account, they're to comment publicly on it, but I'm getting DMs from young women across the UK and Ireland going, oh my God, I didn't know I didn't know that other young women felt like me. I thought I was alone. I can't say anything to my friends because they're all very pro trans, and they're scared and they're like, oh my God, please don't stop speaking. So to the young women who can, if you can, with your, if you have stable employment and you aren't going to get fired, or, you have family support network and friends in real life, use your platform, use your voice. It is the scariest thing ever. The first time I finally anonymized myself was at Let Women Speak in Dublin. And I didn't plan to do it. And the only reason I've been thinking about maybe anonymizing myself, I had a boss that I knew was sympathetic to the cause. And my mother is a publicly out TERF at home as well. So I knew respect. It was so scary because I knew I was going to lose the last handful of friends that I had, because they were like, I know you have these opinions, but like, do you really have to say them out loud? Oh yeah, yes, I do. So but I've been thinking about it for a while, and every time I come past the night for, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to say it on Twitter. Like, I don't care. I'm going to out myself. I'm going to say it on whatever. But it was at that women speak, and it was because the other side, we had a massive protest, and our police at home were amazing. They kept them really far away from us, but it was like right people, they were and we just went as like a support, not all gays, and we had a replica of the first ever gay rights march sign that as a result of Declan Flynn being murdered because he was gay back in the 80s. And so we made a replica of that sign. We just held it up at the barrier, and Menno was standing beside us and he was giving it loads, but we just stood there silently, just with the sign that says "Stop Violence Against Women and Gays." And they went absolutely berserk. They said, you with that sign, you don't speak for us, you don't speak for us. And I saw people that I used to be friends with in that crowd calling us Nazis, calling us um, like fascists, all the rest that they usually hurl at us. And I was also hungover. We'd had a night out the night before, so I was like in a bad way. And I just saw these people that like I used to really care about, and I thought they cared about me, and they were calling me a fascist. And it's like, you know me, you know my values, and even then you're going to say this because to Annette McKay talk about Tuam and her sister, who is now currently going through the excavation process in Tuam, where they're taking the babies that were buried in the septic tank out. And she was speaking about that, and they were calling her a Nazi. So it was just outrageous, and I don't know what came up for me that morning. In my 2 hour sleep, hungover state. And I just got up, and it was the scariest thing, and I was shaking, and I hadn't planned anything, and I did it. And since then, not all gays, and my personal feminism has just snowballed. Like, I'm speaking at this, and like I'm able to use my voice. And yeah, probably women are important. We wouldn't be able to speak if it wasn't for the women in this room, and for platforms like WDI. 2 or 3 years ago in 2022, while I was still anonymous, I spoke for the first time about Belong To and my experience of it, and compared it to more traditional cults and the tactics that they use at the feminist question time on a Saturday. I was still anonymous and going by my other name, Neve, that I was going by at the time. And but since then, like that gave me the confidence then to speak more and louder and more frequently. And now I can't be shut up. I really just can't. I don't really know what else to say. I just think like the younger women are reaching a demographic that, because the TRAs so often say, oh, TERFs are all old, and oh, they don't get it, like they're all just conservative or religious or whatever, the usual stuff that they say about women. And it's really important, I think, to reach the younger generation of women who are on the fence or questioning or going, oh, hold on, that transidentified man that I know is actually a little bit weirdo. Like, he makes me really uncomfortable, but I can't say anything because all my friends think he's like super cool and brave. Um, it's really important for us as younger women to be as loud and as public as we can, because firstly, it proves them wrong that Turks aren't all older women that just don't get it and aren't of the age, but we're also able to speak in a way that they are able to digest and understand, and they go, oh, wait, oh no, they don't hate gay people, they don't hate women, they don't hate gender nonconformity, they just think that men are men. That's all. And it is effective, and more women like there's so many young women, like Connie said, she's managed to gather about 80 people into a WhatsApp chat that are all like young Turks, and it's just for for me it was so lonely for so long. I felt like one of the only younger women, and I was like, oh my god, and like an ex that I was going out with for 5 years, when she found out that I'd made connections with one of the girls in the room, and that we were starting to like, I was actually getting involved in turf activism. She broke up with me because she was like, oh well, yeah, like obviously I'm not going to date a trans woman because I'm a lesbian, but like, do you have to talk about it? And she broke up with me because I made friends with other turfs. So it is lonely for a little bit, but there's so many of us out there. It's just trying to reach them, and the way we do it is by being public.